Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined today, coming to us from the Observatory, writer, director, producer, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
Doing well. Just finished cooking for the dogs for the weekend. Yeah.
It's always important that you cook for the dogs.
It's true.
They're very picky, I understand.
They really are picky.
Most importantly, of course, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here, making our little show a part of your day. And here's how our show's going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a number of predetermined topics we got lined up for you guys, including we're going to be playing a little bit game of Overreaction a little bit later. I have to keep today's show a little bit shorter than normal, so we're not going to be taking live questions. I know a couple people sent in some live questions earlier by accident. If you sent in a live question a little bit earlier, don't worry. We do have them, and we will address your super chat questions that you sent in a little bit earlier at the top of the super chat question section on Monday's show. So don't worry about it. We've got it. We'll not get lost. All right. With that down, we got a number of things to talk about here today, guys. So let's get things started with this. You know, right now, it's a good time to be Warner Brothers. Not only have they kept their huge string of films opening at number one, they just did surprisingly well with Wuthering Heights and all that kind of stuff. But stuff on the HBO front is also going extremely well for them. As the new reports come in from Variety, talking about how Night of the Seven Kingdoms has been pulling in 13 million views per episode. And maybe even more noteworthy, The Pit, the reigning best television show in the world, won best drama at the Emmys and everything, its viewership has doubled from season 1 to season 2. The good folks over at Variety did write about the following. They said this: meanwhile, at Pittsburgh Trauma Medical Center, season 2 of the critically acclaimed medical drama is averaging approximately 12 million viewers per episode. That is 50% better than the show's freshman season, 50% better, not double, season, with the show seeing week-to-week growth. That's the key thing there, is that it's not just the numbers have gone up exponentially from season 1 to season 2, but it's the fact that week to week, the viewership is going up. You know, we've talked a lot about how, one of the key signs that a show is really connecting, it's really finding its audience, and it really must be high quality, is when you look at the week to week releases, is the viewership going up because people keep tuning in and they keep getting more and more people to come and watch it? Or is it going down? We've seen that a lot with a number of the Disney Plus shows. Like maybe they start well with a big opening number, but then they eventually start to trail off. Some of them don't, but a lot of them do. But with The Pit, not only has their numbers gone up overall, week to week, their numbers keep going up, which again goes back to the old argument that we're continuously making around here, that week to week releases is far better for a good show than dropping all the episodes at once, because you get these types of results like what you're getting from The Pit. Now, of course, The Pit's a little bit of an exception because it is arguably the best show on TV right now, at least if you look at all the awards it's been going up. And this season, I kind of half thought, Rob, that this season they may get a bit of a sophomore slump. Like, yeah, it came out of the gates great. It was like a new ER and everybody loved it. And it was fantastic. I absolutely adore it. I think it's an excellent show. I love it. But will novelty start to wear off, or will novelty become a factor where we get tired of it? But this show just seems to be getting better and better and better and better. So I've been really loving it on that level. And then, of course, Rob, on the other side, Night of the Seven Kingdoms. A lot of people thought, could Night of the Seven Kingdoms, not being huge and epic in scale, not having dragons, not having big wars, not having all the characters, the family lineages that we recognize, could they do well? Rob, they're pulling in 13 million views an episode. And I've got a feeling that the final episode that comes out in just a couple of days, episode 6, I got a feeling it's going to be the highest viewed one yet, especially after
Right,
last
sure.
week's episode. So anyway, Rob, it seems like it's a good time to be HBO. It's a good time to be Warner Brothers. Their films are killing it. Their HBO series are killing it. We still got Lanterns coming, which I'm super excited about. But you look at these numbers, Knights of the Seven Kingdom doing great. I don't know. What's your takeaway from this?
Well, like anything, John, you're giving people great entertainment. The thing about the pit is obviously medical shows work well because they have built into them conflict. Will somebody survive the day? It's always interesting because everybody can relate to having a medical issue. But when you're watching the perspective of it's like 24, but in a hospital, it just amps up the drama and the way it's shot and the way it's presented and the characters. I mean, it's like every episode kind of leaves you breathless because there's so much going on. It's kind of irresistible entertainment. And then with the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, you already have the land of Westeros, but when you give us these two characters, I mean, Egg and Dunk, look at them. I mean, you can't, they're irresistible. They're irresistible as a duo. They're irresistible as individual characters. They're so well realized, and it's showing us more of the land that we've always wanted to see. We've only seen Westeros from one angle, which is from the warring political families that control everything. But to see kind of, a much different point of view, a different perspective of Westeros, it's really interesting and it's really well done. And so you're getting world building in every episode and you're getting great character stuff in every episode. And the story is really compelling. Who would have thought? So I'm not surprised. I mean, again, HBO, we've talked about it on this show. They know how to deliver peak entertainment. The executive branch over HBO knows when shows are good and knows when shows aren't. And they've knocked it out of the park with both of these. And following up with House of the Dragon, it looks that we're going to get, I can only imagine that A Night of the Seven Kingdoms makes everybody go back and rewatch Thrones again, go back and dive into House of the Dragon again. And it all just feeds off they feed off each other, which is great.
By the way, have you seen any of the videos that HBO's put out on YouTube of the two actors who played Dunk and Egg, actually hanging out together?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. It's some of the most heartwarming, beautiful stuff. And I love how the guy who plays Dunk, the older guy, he's talking somebody asked him a question. Oh, we heard that you and I can't remember the name of the actor, the young kid who plays Egg. Oh, you guys play Mario Kart. Oh yeah, I kicked his fucking ass. I kicked his fucking ass in Mario Kart. You tell him I said that. It's just, and then you see them together and they just have such a wholesome kind of dynamic between the two of them. It's absolutely beautiful. And it just makes me like watching the show more. And again, like you said, Rob, this is all good for them leading into House of the Dragon. They dropped the trailer the other day for House of the Dragon. I love this show. That trailer was all sorts of awesome. I cannot wait for the get into that. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? HBO is pulling in some big numbers with their shows, the House of the Dragon, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and of course with their reigning Emmy-winning best drama series, The Pit, which only gets better and better, and the numbers keep going up and up every week. Do you watch either of these shows? Do you like them? Do you not? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Other than who's going to be the next Batman, which is always the biggest question in the world of movies. Next up is, every generation, who's going to be the next James Bond? Now, we've heard a lot of names thrown around. Remember, Idris Elba, for a while, was one of the big names. Of course, he was always too old to start playing the role. Tom Hiddleston was a name. Tom Hardy was a name. I love the idea of my boy Henry Cavill. I love the idea of Henry Cavill being James Bond. But none of these ever really kind of took hold. But now there's a name that's being thrown around quite a bit. And that name is Jacob Elordi, the award-nominated actor, Of course, he did quite well for himself in Euphoria, and now he's getting a lot of awards consideration because of his role in Frankenstein. And the dude's really good. I mean, he's a really good, fine actor. We haven't seen a whole ton from him, but everything I've seen him in, he's always delivered really believable, engaging kind of experiences when you watch him as an actor. And so he's really good. But anyway, we're getting even more kind of talk now as reports are coming out that they've actually offered him the role. You've probably seen that all over the place, that Amazon has offered the role of James Bond to Jacob Elordi. And while it could be true, you should also take that with a bit of a grain of salt because of where it's coming from. Anyway, the good folks over at Superhero Hype wrote the following. Online speculation has resurfaced claiming that Jacob Elordi has received an offer to play James Bond in Denis Villeneuve's Bond 26. But this is the problem. It's coming from a celebrity gossip Twitter account. Dumois, I think it's pronounced, posted Jacob Elordi as Bond has been a long-standing rumor, adding Amazon have offered Elordi the Bond role. Filming starts in October this year. Producers have not made any official casting announcements about the next actor to portray 007. All right. With any of these types of reports, I like to look at two basic questions. Question number one, do I believe the report? Question number two, assuming for the sake of discussion that the report is true, how would I feel about it? Those are always the two questions. Number one, do I believe this report is true? I'm very iffy on it. Now look, on the one hand, I do think Elordi would be a fabulous pick. I really do. He's the right age for a guy to start off playing a younger Bond that can be your James Bond for the next 10 to 15 years. He's got the chops. I mean, that's always my number one question. Is this person you're looking at actually a legitimately true, good, talented actor? He absolutely is. And does he kind of have the look? And I think the look of Daniel Craig proved that the look of James Bond can be very wide. But I think I look at him, he could be a James Bond. Sure. But again, because of where this is coming from, not to mention this report kind of reeks a little bit of Elordi's the hot name right now, so start attaching his name to these roles. Seems a little off. The other thing I got to say that I question about it is that when they say Amazon has offered Elordi the Bond role, filming starts in October of this year. I know there have also been other places, Rob, suggesting that they're going to start shooting this in October. And I have no insider information to refute that. Okay, let me be clear. But I find that very hard to believe because in October, Denis Villeneuve is going to be in the last final stretches of putting the final little pieces on Dune 3. Not to mention, he's going to be starting a very exhaustive worldwide global marketing push for Dune 3. So again, it could be true, and I have no insider information to refute it. I'm just saying I find it very hard to believe that in that particular window of time for the director of the film, that Denis Villeneuve is going to be focusing on anything other than getting Dune into theaters. That comes out just 2 months after that. So, number one, I'm 50-50 on whether this could be true. But the second part of the question is, if it was true, I'm totally good with it. I think he's got the acting chops. I think he's the right age. I think he could pull off a really believable Bond. So I'd be totally good with it. I'm just iffy on if it's true. So Rob, I put the same two questions to you. Number one, do you find this report believable? Then number two, assume for a moment that it's true. How would you feel about it?
Well, I think it's absolutely believable. I mean, Jacob Elordi has a lot of fans. He's doing a lot of good work. I mean, I kind of was hoping Callum Turner would get it. Only, I like I like the way he looks as Bond. But I could absolutely see Jacob Elordi getting it. I was joking with you that he's 6'5", so
He's big.
if
He'd be our
Bond
tallest
walked into
Bond.
yeah, he's gonna attract attention, which isn't necessarily the best thing for the world's best super spy, but I guess who cares? But yeah, no, I could believe it. As for the movie shooting in October, I mean, a Bond movie by definition has a lot where pre-production. You probably would have 4 or 5 months of pre-production. There's no way they're going to start shooting a Bond movie in October because Dune, you're in the middle of Dune's got to be scored. Dune's got to be. I'm sure for the rest of the year he's busy, and it's not just doing the press tour, which he has to do as well, but he's got you have months and months of pre-production on a Bond film, so he would have to start in a couple of months really if he was going to shoot in October. So I don't believe that. I think he's in the middle of making a gigantic epic film, so it wouldn't surprise me if we hear after the first of the year that it's going to go into pre-production, but I can't imagine he would be doing both. So I don't believe that the new Bond film is going to shoot in October.
Again, let me reemphasize, we don't have any insider information that clearly refutes it. We're just both saying that we kind of doubt that that's true. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? There are reports going around that Jacob Elordi has been offered the role of Bond. I don't know if I buy it. I think that's a coin toss. But if it were true, I'd be totally good with it. I don't know. However you guys feel about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? Now, we've got a new Superman movie coming. I'm not talking about Supergirl. I'm talking about Man of Tomorrow. And you guys will know that I always refer to it as Superman, Man of Tomorrow. Because while they say, oh, it's not really a direct sequel to Superman, it's a sequel to Superman. I mean, you can try to use whatever semantics you want. It is a sequel to Superman. And I believe for marketing, I've always kind of thought for marketing, it makes most sense to call it Superman, Man of Tomorrow. Well, in the last 24 hours, reports started running around like mad, actually claiming that, yeah, they actually changed the name to Superman, Man of Tomorrow. Now, why is that? Well, this comes to us from Superhero Hype. The speculation about the title change started after Variety published an article detailing Warner Brothers Discovery's future amid its sales to Netflix and Paramount takeover bid. The article labeled the sequel as Superman, Man of Tomorrow, and revealed that production would start in a few weeks. All right. Let's just say that I like it because I myself always refer to it as Superman, Man of Tomorrow. And it could very well be, Rob, you'd be surprised how many writers from Variety often drop notes to me to say they watch. And whenever I bring up like a Variety article,
Sure.
so many times I'll get somebody from Variety who was the author of it saying, "Hey, John, I've been watching your show for years. It was such a kick to see you bring up my article thing." So maybe they got it from me. I don't know. I'm not saying that they did, but I'm saying maybe they got the Superman, Man of Tomorrow thing from me. Now, is this true? Well, as he is off to do, director James Gunn took to social media and responded to somebody asking him about it. And he's saying it's not true. This comes to us from a Comic Book Movie. Still, James Gunn started by debunking reports that the movie's title has been changed to Superman, Man of Tomorrow, explaining that Variety just made a mistake, and the filmmaker said, and he said, "I tried to avoid the colons." Likely explaining why, remember, the first movie was going to be called Superman, Legacy. He changed it to just Superman. And then he also just made the Supergirl title a lot simpler by just calling it Supergirl. So James Gunn has come out and said, no. We have not changed the title. I kind of try to stay away from the colons, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Rob, normally that would be the end of it. James Gunn, not only the director of the film, but the head of DC, has come out and said, no, Variety made a mistake. I still think when Superman, Man of Tomorrow comes out, it's going to be called Superman, Man of Tomorrow. And I'll tell you why. Because from a marketing perspective, which remember, that's all the title of a film is. Like good title, bad title, whatever. All the title of a movie is yet another tool in the marketing bag. That's really, at the end of the day, that's all it really is. And Warner Brothers, who is going to be the distributor of this movie, I believe between now and we have a long time before this movie ever comes out, I believe Warner Brothers, as the distributor of the film, is going to get into James Gunn's ear. And I ultimately believe, and again, I have no insider information. James Gunn hasn't told me anything. DeLuca and Abdi haven't told me anything. I'm just saying, even though James Gunn right now is coming out and saying they made a mistake, we have not changed the title, and I believe him. I'm telling you right now, I believe, just as a fan speculating like everybody else, I believe that by the time this movie comes out, Warner Brothers will step in, and I think they're going to call it Superman Man of Tomorrow. Look, you just got started with this new Superman franchise. It's just good branding to make sure you've got that name on it. And you know what? Listen, Warner Brothers just came out of another branding nightmare with their whole HBO Max. No, now it's just Max. No kidding. We're going to put the HBO word back in there. Now it's HBO Max again. They just went through all that. They understand from a marketing perspective, from a branding perspective, it just makes sense to have the name Superman on it. It just does. Is it super important at the end of the day? No. Is it going to make the movie any better or any worse? No, obviously not. But again, Rob, I think that when push comes to shove, Warner Brothers is just going to sit down with Gunn and say, look, as the distributors of the film, we just feel for branding having Superman. So I believe James Gunn when he says we haven't changed the title yet. I believe him. But I also believe there are going to be people at Warner Brothers that change his mind. And I think this will ultimately be called Superman Man of Tomorrow. Anyway, Rob, you saw the reports and the rumors. You heard what James Gunn had to say. What say you? Are they going to change the title? Is it a good idea to not change it? Is it a good idea to change it? How do you feel about it?
Well, look, I think I'm with you. I think they're going to change the title because the problem is if you're not up on Superman lore, Man of Tomorrow could mean anything.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be anything. It doesn't necessarily tell, I hate to call them normies or mundanes, but the average
muggles.
Audience, the muggles, the average audience member does not necessarily know what that means. And if you have a Superman movie coming out, you want Superman in the title. I mean, you just do. That's your guy. I mean, unless you had a long history or like James Bond movies don't have James Bond in the title because they had a series of books that they're adapting. But Superman is the character. And I think, by the way, I think Superman Man of Tomorrow is a cool title, even if there's a colon or a dash, whatever. I think that's cool. Just like I think The Empire Strikes Back is a cool title. I mean, surrounded by the word Star Wars. So I think that it's going to be called Superman Man of Tomorrow. Because why not?
Yeah.
If I was making a Superman movie, I'd want Superman to be in the title.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And you know what? Listen, to your point, like, I think 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 years from now, once DC is actually now established, because it's not, we always forget this is a brand new studio. This is a brand new cinematic universe. I think once they've been rolling 4, 5, 6 years, at that point, maybe you can start looking at the idea of, hey, everybody knows what our movies are now. We can just call this one. We don't have to call this one Superman, The Origins of Crypto. We can just call it Origins of Crypto.
Right. Yeah,
and by the way, I'm not breaking any news there. I just made that up. But right now, they're reestablishing the entire identity of this cinematic universe. And again, they very well may not. I'm just sitting here as a random fan pulling this out of my ass. I think, and apparently you agree, that by the time this movie comes out, this movie will be titled Superman Man of Tomorrow. So,
by the way, that picture you just had up, I want to see that movie.
Yes.
You know, I want Lex in his battle armor and Superman. I think it'd be great. I can't wait.
Oh, I think it's going to be great. But then again, you know, I love the first Superman movie. So there you go. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, there were some reports going around based on some stuff that Variety wrote and maybe some stuff that I've said that I just refer to the movie as Superman Man of Tomorrow. And I will continue to refer to it as Superman Man of Tomorrow. But it is important to know that James Gunn has come out and said, no, Variety made a mistake. I have not changed the title of this movie. And I believe him. But I think they will. I don't know. Whatever you guys think about this, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this. You know, there is a new X-Men universe coming.
No.
Yep. On the other side of Avengers Secret Wars, which we're going to be talking about in just a little bit here, we are going to, of course, be getting the brand new, all fantastic X-Men. Now, we've already known that X-Men went and got a director for themselves. And I always pronounce his name wrong, but I believe it's Jake Schreier. I think that's how you say it. I might be mispronouncing it. But he did a magnificent job in directing Thunderbolts. Like, I think, listen, I loved Superman. I thought Fantastic Four was a solid film. But I quite frankly and very clearly thought Thunderbolts was the best comic book movie of 2025. And in no small part to the man directing it. I just thought he did a fantastic job with it, and we know he's directing the new film. He's going to be the first director for X-Men, which is exciting. But now we've gotten a report about when they're actually going to start shooting this movie, and it sounds like it's a lot sooner than we thought. This comes to us from the folks over at Heroic Hollywood, who wrote the following. When are they filming the X-Men reboot? Well, a new rumor seems to give some bit of relief to anxious fans, even if it's too specific. If it isn't too specific, Scooper Daniel RPK, who again often right, sometimes wrong, reveals that Marvel is aiming to begin production for the X-Men reboot after Avengers Secret Wars wraps filming, so before Secret Wars comes out. This likely means that the MCU's most anticipated project will start filming in late 2026 or early 2027. So that's the whisper and the rumor going around that they're going to actually start shooting this thing possibly by the end of this year. All right. Again, we go back to the two main questions. Number one, do I believe this report? Because right now, remember, this is not officially coming from Kevin Feige or Marvel. This is coming from an online scooper. Do I believe it? And then number two, if it is true, how do I feel about it? Starting with the believability of it, I'm going to go the opposite way of what I said before on the last issue. I absolutely believe this. I really do. And I believe this for two reasons. Reason number one, well, I believe that this will actually start shooting by the end of 2026, is that they've had their director on for ages now. Like, Rob, it wasn't just last week that they announced Jake was directing this thing. He's been announced as the director of this movie for ages. So he's been on it. They've been working on it. I have no doubt a lot of pre-production has probably already started on this thing. So that's the first reason why I believe this report. The second reason I believe this report is because if you look at the normal life cycle of the production of an MCU movie, X-Men's coming out after Secret Wars. Secret Wars is coming out in December of 2027. So that means if you just start shooting X-Men, say near the end of 2026, you only got a little bit over a year to have an X-Men movie ready to come out, say 3 or 4 months after Secret Wars. And it could be longer than that, but the time frame fits. So the two reasons I believe it is, number one, they've had the director on board for ages. They're ready to go. The second reason is it fits the time frame of when we're kind of expecting this first X-Men movie, this all new, all recast X-Men movie to come out. It fits the timeline for them to start shooting around the end of 2026. So, or, maybe at the latest early 2027, but I believe by the end of 2026. And because it's a whole new cast, you don't have to worry about them needing them for promotional tours, for Doomsday or Secret Wars, I should say. This is a whole new cast. So I don't even think they're going to need to worry about it. So then if I believe the report, how do I feel about it? I think it's great. I mean, look, I'm very anxious for them to get back to X-Men. I'm excited to see James Marsden again, to see Patrick Stewart again, to see Ian McKellen. Yes, I'm excited to see them again in upcoming Doomsday and who knows, maybe Secret Wars. But I'm also very excited to finally, after nearly 3 decades, Rob, get the new X-Men. I'm really excited. We've been talking about it for long enough. I mean, it's been 6 years since Disney took over Fox and got the rights to the X-Men back. So we've been waiting a long time to see what these new X-Men are going to be. So I believe the report and I love the report. So that's how I take it. Rob, the same 2 questions to you. Do you find the report believable that they're going to start shooting this X-Men by the end of this year or right around the end of this year? And then number 2, if so, how do you feel about that? Is that the right move?
Well, one, I do believe it because, as you know, he was hired quite some time ago, and they, Marvel was up until recently, they were cranking stuff out. I mean, they were getting out 3 or 4 films a year. And I think that with what they're building, I mean, obviously we've got Brand New Day coming and Doomsday and Secret Wars. That's ramping up. And what they're doing is they're not just giving us X-Men, they're rebooting their universe. I mean, it's going back to square one after Battle World. I mean, I would imagine from what we've heard, like the Chris Hemsworth stuff, when he said he's going to continue to play Thor, it wouldn't surprise me if we have this old guard. I don't know if they're going to be the new Illuminati, like we saw in Multiverse of Madness, and they will oversee the universe, which could be very interesting. But, we're basically they can go back to square one after Battle World, after the multiverse has collapsed and however they're going to follow the comic book series. So it makes sense to me that they would reboot the universe pivoting into the X-Men universe, because you don't even have to, once you deal with X-Men, there's so many characters there. It's like a whole different universe that you can now develop. What does that look like from the MCU's perspective? And I would imagine the reason that they've leaned heavily into the old X-Men is they're giving them a proper send-off. As Battle World, as the multiverse collapses and Battle World is created, and however we get out of that in Secret Wars, that means that all the other Tobey Maguire, those Andrew Garfield, those Spider-Man worlds are gone. The X-Men world is gone. Now there's just one world, which means it gives you an in-universe way to start from scratch. And I would imagine what they're going to do with the X-Men is you're going to see it's going to be Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. And you're going to see if Sadie Sink is if she really is Jean Grey, and we don't know exactly if she is or not, but you're going to see a younger group of X-Men, probably all in their 20s, which I think is a great, it gives you great opportunities. I mean, I'm a huge X-Men fan. I have been since I was a kid. I mean, the way I love Star Trek, I love the X-Men. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do, because there's so many characters. There's so many different good guys and bad guys and all kinds of guys and girls and aliens and Mojo and the Mojo verse. Are they going to do that? Are they going to give us Long Shot? I mean, it's crazy what they could do. So I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? Apparently, according to some rumors and reports going around there, they could be looking at beginning to shoot this X-Men movie by the end of this year. And I actually completely believe that, because the director's been on board and getting everything ready for a long time, and it would fit the time frame about when we'd probably be expecting the movie to come out. What do you think about that? Are you looking forward to this new universe of X-Men? Do you actually believe they're going to start shooting it this year? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we still got to talk about this news that's coming out about Avengers Secret Wars. But before we do, to end off this week, I thought we would play ourselves a little game of overreaction. Of course, the way overreaction works is we asked you guys in the YouTube channel to send us some of your hot takes. And then Rob and I would simply tell you if those hot takes are overreactions or not. So Rob, we go over to you. Our first hot take gets sent in to us by our viewer, Danito, who writes, by 2030, which is now only, that, want to feel old, that's only 4 years away. 2030 is only 4 years away. By 2030, Game of Thrones, not DC, will be Warner Brothers' most valuable brand. Rob, is that an overreaction or not?
Well, okay. I am going to say it is a bit of an overreaction only because unless they pivot and start making Game of Thrones movies, as a brand, what's going to take in more money? I mean, I think that the DC universe overall, between merchandising, movies, video games, I think it's a more valuable brand than Game of Thrones. And so I don't think Game of Thrones is going to overtake it. So I think it's an overreaction.
I think you just nailed it. I completely agree with you. It is not going to overtake it. DC is just getting rolling now. We haven't even got Batman or Wonder Woman or Aquaman in it yet. They just had the Superman to launch it off. They got off to a great launch. We got Supergirl and Clayface coming. I don't know how big those are going to be, but they're going to redouble down how DC is changing the perception of it, that it's not just some garbage thing that, let's face it, everybody thought the DCEU was. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger. But the key to it is exactly what you said. They might put out a Game of Thrones movie at some point. We might get one in theaters. I'd be all for it. But I don't think they're going to become a regular staple of theatrical stuff. It's going to maintain mostly on HBO, which is great. But I think I agree with you, Rob. That's going to prevent it from kind of overtaking DC as their number one brand. So I'm going to call it, just like you did, Rob, an overreaction. All right. Let's get on to the next one here, shall we? And the next hot take gets sent in to us by our viewer, Cartoon Power, who writes, a comic book movie will win Best Picture at the Oscars before an animated movie or an anime movie. All right. I have to say, I'm going to say that that's not an overreaction. Now, look, when you actually look at the history of it, I believe only 2 comic book based films have ever been nominated for Best Picture. I believe, now correct me in the live chat if I'm wrong with that, but that was Black Panther and that was Joker. I don't think any others have ever been nominated. In the world of animated films, in the 100+ years, there's only ever been 3. And that was Toy Story 3. I believe it was Up. And of course, the first one ever nominated was the original Beauty and the Beast. Did it. Only 3. So really, between the 2 genres, you've only ever had 5 in total. That being said, I do think that comic book movies are getting closer to it. Because, we saw things like Logan get nominated for Best Screenplay. We've seen more and more that these comic book movies are striking the bigger and bigger and more of the serious awards at the Oscars. So I'm going to say it's not an overreaction to say that a comic book film will win one before an animated one does. Rob, overreaction or not?
No, I don't think it's an overreaction, just like what you just said. I mean, we've already seen precedent for comic book movies. I mean, when you think about movies like The Dark Knight or you think about Logan, they're just as valid in terms of the stories they're telling and the gravitas that those stories have. One day it could really work out. I mean, if you get the godfather of comic book movies, and also, you've got new members of the Academy that aren't necessarily, there is a prejudice. I've always believed that there's a prejudice against horror, science fiction, fantasy, but that's changed. That's been changing over the years. When you saw Lord of the Rings, when Return of the King won Best Picture, when Silence of the Lambs won Best Picture, things started to change. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see a comic book movie win Best Picture.
All right. Let's move on to the next one. And this next hot take gets sent in to us by our viewer, Knight Rider, who writes, Rob, Avengers Doomsday and Brand New Day will be the start of the now back again peak Marvel. Is it an overreaction or not to say that Avengers Doomsday and Brand New Day will be the start of the now back again peak Marvel?
I don't think it's an overreaction. I don't think it's an overreaction only because I think Marvel knew, they were in a slump. And I think they're coming out guns a-blazing with Brand New Day and certainly Doomsday, which I can't wait to see, and Secret Wars. And then coming out with X-Men, I think, and they're not, you know what? They're not making 3 or 4 movies a year. They've pulled back a little bit. They're going to put everything they have into these movies. They're going to take their time and they're going to make them great. And while I do think Doomsday has to surmount the idea that it does have kind of a gimmick in that it's cast Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, but I think that being more aware of what we're going to get, I'm thinking it's going to be peak. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see how they're going to incorporate Battle World. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with Secret Wars. I mean, they're going all in. So the ambition, I think, is going to pay off. Whether it's going to be Winter Soldier peak, I don't know. But I think that if there ever was going to be a peak Marvel again, we're going to get it.
Yeah,
it's
now's
coming.
the time to do it. You know what? I'm going to agree with you. I don't think it's an overreaction to say this at all. And I say that for 2 different reasons. Well, 3, okay? Reason number 1, momentum seems to be back in Marvel's favor, right? Because ever since Endgame, it's been hit and miss. I mean, to be kind, it's been hit and miss. Some hugely wonderful things, absolutely, but also some incredibly disappointing things, more than we're used to seeing from Marvel. But if you even just look in the last few months, the last 3 projects they've put out in a row, Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, Wonder Man, I think all of those are wins.
You do.
Especially right. And now we're coming into Spider-Man Brand New Day, which I think is going to deliver because of Destin who's directing it. And I really do believe, I know Doomsday is going to work, and I really believe Secret Wars is going to work as well.
And we've also got, don't forget, Daredevil's Born Again season 2.
Daredevil season 2, yeah, and Vision Quest. For. So I really think momentum's back on their side. The second reason I believe it is because of the upcoming things they have. Daredevil season 2. I think Vision Quest is going to be fantastic. And of course, Spider-Man Brand New Day, Doomsday, Secret Wars. The third reason, and maybe the most important reason, is this. We are now past the influence of the Bob Chapek era. And I know I keep going back to this a lot, but guys, it cannot be overstated. When Bob Chapek came in and became the CEO of Disney, I was enthusiastic about it at first, but then he made that move where he stripped so much power away from the studio heads, including Kevin Feige, and gave them to his banker lieutenant. And his banker lieutenant got to make the decisions about what projects got made and where they would go. And famously, don't forget this one, Rob, a Marvel executive came out and confirmed that the mandate given to them, including at Marvel, was you guys have to start producing as much as you can, as fast as you can. And you got to start cranking that crap out. Now, Chapek left, and then it takes a while to feel the effect of him now being gone. But I believe we're in that era now. And I now believe that Bob Iger gave Kevin Feige all of his power and authority back. He took away that middle management. I think we're starting to see now, and Marvel doesn't have that mandate anymore to make as much as you can, as fast as you can. I believe we're seeing them getting back to the more glory days of it. So yeah, I mean, look, everything can go wrong for sure. Maybe Secret Wars sucks. It could. But I don't believe it's an overreaction to say we are on the precipice of being back to peak Marvel. I don't think he's wrong about that. All right. With that down, guys, let's get on to our next hot take. And this next hot take gets sent in to us by our viewer, the MBT, who writes, The Devil Wears Prada 2 will make more money at the U.S. box office than The Mandalorian and Grogu. The Devil Wears Prada 2 will make more money at the US box office than The Mandalorian and Grogu. Guys, this ain't an overreaction at all. I'll guarantee it. I 100% guarantee it. And you know, I remember when they announced Devil Wears Prada 2. And I told everybody, I mean, I'm not its target audience, but guys, do not sleep on this thing. And everybody's like, nobody cares about Devil Wears Prada 2. No one's going to go see Devil Wears Prada 2. Nobody cares, blah, 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 blah. Well, and I say, guys, you're sleeping on this. You're sleeping on this. And then what happened? The number one most watched trailer in 2025 was not Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. It wasn't anything from Marvel. It wasn't anything from DC. The number one most viewed trailer of 2025 was the Devil Wears Prada 2 teaser. And now, in 2026, they've dropped the full trailer, and guess what it did? It hit the top 10 all-time most viewed trailers in history. Mandalorian and Grogu did not. And while I'm still a Star Wars guy, Rob. I'm still a Star Wars guy, and it's still John Favreau. So you always got to give it its fair respect and trust because it's John Favreau. But not only do I think this is not an overreaction to say The Devil Wears Prada 2 will beat out Mandalorian and Grogu, it's not even a question. I mean, I think it's easily because I don't see Mandalorian and Grogu making $700 million, but I do see Devil Wears Prada 2 making $600-700 million. Anyway, Rob, is it an overreaction to say that The Devil Wears Prada 2 will make more than a Star Wars movie, Mandalorian and Grogu?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I never thought we would live in this world, but I think that the public has spoken already, and those who watch trailers speak loud and clear. And remember, Devil Wears Prada 2 is a Star Wars movie for girls. So, I mean, it's every mom and their daughter is going to go see that movie. The Devil Wears Prada was a huge phenomenon. It was a book first, and then the movie was huge, and it's going to be gigantic. It's going to be gigantic. So I don't think Mandalorian. The one thing about Mandalorian and Grogu is, as we saw in this new trailer, I don't even have a reason. Why am I watching it? What in it? Is it going to give me something that I haven't got already? If Luke Skywalker doesn't show up in it, it's what is it going to give me? I mean, that's the thing. I keep waiting for somebody to give me a reason to see Mandalorian and Grogu. I mean, other than
listen, I like the newest trailer.
Yeah,
I thought the newest trailer was the best thing they've put out so far. It's made me at least a little bit more interested in it now.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm still like, I don't. If it had like an irresistible hook of why do I want to see this movie, and I don't feel that it does. I mean, I'm going to see it, of course, because I like Star Wars. But there's why I need to know, other than the fact that they needed to make a Star Wars movie, why did they need to make The Mandalorian and Grogu? What is it about this story that was worth putting on the big screen? And I haven't seen it yet. All right.
So we'll see. With that down, guys, let's move on to our next hot take. And this next hot take gets sent in to us by our viewer, Jimmy C, who sends us in. And Rob, is this an overreaction or not? The re-release of Endgame will do a bigger box office take than the new upcoming Paramount Jackass movie. The re-release of Endgame will do bigger box office than the new Jackass movie. Is that an overreaction or not?
I don't think it's an overreaction, especially if they put something new, because Endgame didn't have an end tag,
which they say they're going to have now.
Yeah, and so you're going to have to see Endgame to I think get what's going on. I wouldn't be surprised if Endgame has more than just an end tag. If they add a little bit more to the movie that we didn't see before. And, I can see how they could do that, because obviously you and I know a little bit about Doomsday, and, maybe there's stuff in the movie in Doomsday that they could actually incorporate into Endgame. I'm not saying they could or there is, but what if there is? Who knows? You never know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think they're going to put anything new in Endgame that the audience is required to see if they're
No.
going to have any hope of understanding what's going on in Doomsday. But they are going to add a little bit more. You know, my first thought is to call this an overreaction because the reality is that everybody's seen Endgame. Everybody's seen it recently. It's available to be watched online right now. And so I don't think Endgame is going to make $250 million at the box office when it gets re-released. But I've got to call it not an overreaction. And it's not because it's not because I think the Endgame re-release is going to make $250 million or anything like that. But you're saying it's going to make more money than the new Jackass. Well, if we go and look at it, the biggest Jackass movie ever was Jackass 3D, but that's all the way back in 2010. That made $171 million. The newest Jackass movie, Jackass Forever, you can see it right there in the middle. It only made $80 million. That's the most recent one. It made $80.5 million. And I'll be honest with you, while I am interested in seeing a new Jackass movie, I am. What I am not interested, or I am not as interested as I was in years past. And I don't think that this new Jackass will make as much as Jackass Forever did. So let's say it did. Let's say it made as much money as Jackass Forever did. That's the most recent one. It made $80 million. So the question really becomes, is it an overreaction to say that an Endgame being re-released can make more than $80 million? And Rob, to that, I will say that's not an overreaction. I don't think it'll make $250 million, but I do think Endgame makes more than $80 million, and I can't see the new Jackass movie making more than that. So yeah, I'm going to say it is not an overreaction to say that Endgame's re-release will make more than the new Jackass. All right. That down, we now move on to our final hot take of the day. And this last and final hot take today gets submitted to us by our viewer, Al109, who writes, Rob, is this an overreaction? Disney buying Warner Brothers would have been better, or at least not as bad, as either Netflix or Paramount buying Warner Brothers. Rob, is it an overreaction to say that Disney buying Warner Brothers would be better than either Netflix or Paramount getting them?
Yeah, I think that's an overreaction. I don't, I think if Disney bought Warner Brothers, we would see it in position number 3 behind Fox, and even Fox. I mean, they have an incredible catalog of films that Disney's really not done anything with. Like, for instance, where are the original Planet of the Apes movies on 4K? When they released Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, they didn't put those things up the way they could have. All these great titles that Fox owns, they've done nothing with them. And Warner Brothers has more than Fox. So it would be, I don't think that Disney would exploit the studio the way that Netflix will, because Netflix, all they want to do is get into that content, and they'll take Warner Brothers' deep library and splatter it all across their platform, which I think is great. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's a big overreaction to say Disney buying Warner Brothers would be better than the other alternatives. And I say that for 3 different reasons. Reason number 1, Disney buying Warner Brothers would bring with it one of the same drawbacks of Paramount buying Warner Brothers. Tens of thousands of jobs being lost.
Yep.
And that's just not good. I mean, I understand sometimes job losses happen. I get it. I'm a realist, but this is unnecessary. And so if Disney bought Paramount, boom, instantly tons of overlap, tons of redundancy, tens of thousands of jobs would be lost. The second reason I think it's an overreaction to say Disney buying Warner Brothers would be better is because it would take away variety. What I mean by that is this. I want more players making comic book content. I don't want fewer people making it. I don't want DC's titles to be under Marvel. Then we're just getting the same. And don't get me wrong, I love Marvel. I love what Kevin Feige does. But I also love having some diversity. I love having different voices tell these stories. And so I think it would be terrible, absolutely terrible, to have DC also being under the exact same people who are also making Marvel films. I think that would be tragic and terrible. The third reason, and this is the most important one, why I believe Warner Brothers being bought by Disney would be better than, say, Netflix getting it, is this. That equals fewer movies coming to movie theaters. And it leaves Netflix as an adversary to movie theaters. One of the things that has kind of changed my mind from being, as I was a few months ago, when I said Netflix getting Warner Brothers was the absolute worst case scenario. One of the data points that has kind of changed my mind on that is the fact that it takes Netflix, which is seen as rightly or wrongly, fairly or unfairly. Netflix is kind of seen and perceived as being an adversary to the theatrical business. What Netflix taking over Warner Brothers does is it actually transforms Netflix into an ally of the theatrical business. Because now Netflix stands to profit from the theatrical business doing well. It also means more movies coming to theaters. Because Ted Sarandos just came out recently and said, oh, hey, not only is Warner Brothers movies all going to go to theaters and have their theatrical windows, now that we've got this exhibition and this distribution infrastructure through Warner Brothers, we're going to start putting Netflix movies in theaters. So it means more movies getting made, people not losing their jobs, and more diverse people making comic book genre material than just one group making it. So for all those reasons, I vehemently disagree, and I think it's a massive overreaction to say that Disney getting Warner Brothers would be better than the alternative. So, by the way, Rob, I think it's safe to say both you and I still believe the best alternative is that nobody buys Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
That's still our baseline, that it would be best if nobody bought them, but we know that's not realistic.
Yeah. 100%.
Anyway, guys, that will wrap up today's little installment of Overreaction. Thank you to everybody who sent in your submissions and your hot takes. Keep your eyes open on the YouTube channel, particularly in the community tab, when we drop our call for you guys to send in submissions for Overreaction. We'll pick some out. Maybe you'll see your hot take featured on the next Overreaction. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, we all know we got Avengers Doomsday coming, and then the year following that, we've got Avengers Secret Wars. Very excited for both of these. I cannot wait to see what they have in store for Secret Wars. Now, one of the big whispers going around, actually some outlets even reporting it, was that Avengers Secret Wars was actually going to get split into two different movies. And we were going to have Secret Wars Part 1, and then sometime in 2028, Secret Wars Part 2. And that's kind of been gaining a lot of traction. A lot of people believing that and thinking that's, to the point that some people just now assume that's happening, right? Even though Marvel has never announced such a thing. Now, I've always had two precautions against believing it necessarily. One is that contractually, splitting Secret Wars into two different movies means needing to pay Robert Downey Jr. again, and that's a massive line in the budget. Not to mention scheduling and all that kind of stuff. And I've just always believed they always knew what they were doing in Secret Wars. Not that I was completely against the idea that they might split it. You guys have watched the show. You guys know that I think there's some validity to those reports. But I said it would be kind of difficult from a contractual point of view. The other thing I said on the show the other day, Rob, when we were talking about it, because somebody wrote in and said, well, they have to split Secret Wars because of how big the story is. And Rob, you remember I said on the show, Actually, it's not. Like, if you actually look at the story of Secret Wars, you can do that in a 2.5 to 3 hour movie. I would argue that Time Runs Out is actually a larger, like if you were going to split anything in two, it would be Doomsday. But when you really look at it, Secret Wars, the story of Secret Wars doesn't require 2.5 hour movies to tell the story. So anyway, with all that being said, there are now reports coming out that no, Disney was never looking at splitting Secret Wars into two. And it comes to us from our friend and scooper, Jeff Snyder. This comes to us from the folks over at Comic Book Movie Write This. Despite these reports talking about how Secret Wars was going to be split in two, industry insider Jeff Snyder doesn't see it happening. As of right now, Jeff said, Marvel is not planning, all right? Marvel is not planning to split Avengers Secret Wars into two films, he writes this in his week's newsletter. That may have been mentioned by somebody somewhere along the chain of power, but it's not being seriously discussed in Burbank. That's where Disney's offices are. Due to the difficulty of scheduling, the enormous cast, not to mention the prospect of having to pay Robert Downey Jr. even more enormous salary. Now, I should say that I was actually told, I never brought it up on the show because it's not somebody who would definitively know, but I was told by somebody a few weeks ago that, to the best of their knowledge, there hadn't been any serious discussions about splitting it in two. I didn't take it very seriously or not seriously because, again, I don't know that this person who is on the inside necessarily was in a position that they would know for sure. So I didn't say anything. But I got to tell you, Rob, I actually believe what Jeff is writing. I think we are getting really far into the game right now. Again, the complexities of having to restructure all the contracts is a big thing. I think they already have their 2028 planned out. And for you to now suddenly split Secret Wars into two movies and drop that somewhere near the end of 2028, that completely screws with your release plans for everything else that was supposed to come in 2028. And then lastly, of course, the whole notion of that they could run the risk of making the same mistake that they made with The Hobbit. The Hobbit should have been one movie. At the very most, maybe you could have done it as two. You certainly shouldn't have done it as three. And I think Secret Wars is kind of a movie that can be told perfectly well in a 2.5 to 3 hour movie. So while I have kind of bought into the idea that they could be splitting this in two, I really do believe Jeff's report here when he says they're not doing it. And I'm now fully expecting that we're not going to get a Secret Wars Part 2. We're going to get Secret Wars, and then Marvel's going to continue on with the rest of their plan. Anyway, Rob, you hear this report. Do you believe it, not believe it, right move, wrong move? How do you see it?
Well, I believe it. I believe right now that the movies, they are planning on making one movie, because it's one movie. As far as I know, it's hasn't even gone before the cameras yet. So
right.
I think they know, obviously, that they moved forward with a script. Like everybody knows, the script, a script is usually the common wisdom, the conventional wisdom is that one page equals 1 minute of screen time.
Right.
And normally a screenplay, when you look at a script, you don't even want to see the scripts that usually 90 pages to 110 pages is like the sweet spot. You get to 120 pages, your script better be damn good. Well, the Doomsday script was a lot bigger than that. And they could have stretched it further. They could have broken that movie into two movies, but it's, there's a lot of story to tell in Secret Wars. And I don't have any idea how they're going to do that or what they're going to do or how it's going to look. And I believe that the potential could be there because they weren't going to make 3 Hobbit movies. The third movie was born out of the production. Peter Jackson thought that they had more story, so they added a third movie to it. But like you pointed out, there are so many actors in this film that, look, if they were going to make 2 movies, they're going to shoot it all at once anyway. It's going to be the same production. So maybe they could get away with it knowing they're going to break it into 2 movies. But what does that deal look like? If they have to pay everybody twice, the whole point of breaking them into 2 movies is to amortize the cost. That's why they made Lord of the Rings at first all at once so they could amortize the cost, so they wouldn't have to start and stop and start and stop. And it would be to save money, but that would be the only thing that I could possibly imagine. I don't even know what that would look like in terms of if they go in knowing let's just say they have a 200-page script and they know that they're going to break it into, not that anybody should greenlight a 200-page script, but let's say they did. They would know that they were going to break the movie into 2 movies, and the actors would know that going in. They would plan on it. So how do you structure that deal? They're not starting another movie. They're just going to break it into 2 films. I don't even know what a deal like that would look like. Does Robert Downey Jr. get paid twice? I don't know.
Oh, 100% he would. You can't, because if not, they would. Every court in the world. First of all, the actors would sue the shit out of the studio, and every court in the world would find in favor of the actors.
Right, but they would have to. What I mean is, they would know going in. They would know going in that the movie is going to be, that they're going to split it into 2. So whatever deals that they would have in place, I think would account for that.
But then in that case, you're not. If you know going in before day 1 of shooting, then you're not splitting a movie in 2. You're shooting 2 movies. Right. I mean, right. I know that's semantics, yeah, but it's important semantics, right? Because then it never was 1 movie. It was always 2 separate movies. If like right from the beginning of the contracts, it was for 2 separate movies. And I don't think they've done that. And then it brings up the other kind of logistical nightmare part. Secret Wars is so important that you can't put out any other movies until Secret Wars is done.
Right. Yep.
So that means if you suddenly have Secret Wars Part 1 in December of 2027 and then Secret Wars Part 2 in December of 2028, you can't release a damn thing in between that, because it would just make no sense, because every movie that would be coming out in 2028, X-Men and what have you, it assumes that the audience has already seen the conclusion of the Secret Wars storyline.
Yeah.
And just its existence would spoil whatever was going to come in Secret Wars Part 2.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
It's tricky. Again, neither Rob or I are sitting here telling you definitively, because Kevin Feige hasn't spoken to it. But then again, Kevin Feige never said they were going to do Secret Wars as 2 films.
No.
So that was never a fact anyway. But we're not sitting here telling you it's a fact that they're not. It just seems to me to make sense that it's not what they're doing.
Yeah, and I don't even know. I mean, I haven't seen a script for Secret Wars or something like that. I know nothing. I know nothing about what they're going to do. The only thing I can tell you is that I recently reread the omnibuses, the Secret Wars and the Secret Wars Battle World omnibuses. That's it. That's what I know. In terms of Secret Wars, I need to get omnibus number 2 of Battle World. But yeah.
By the way, somebody in the live chat is just saying something very wrong. David is saying they did it with Endgame and Ant-Man. Not really, though, because the time frame was so isolated. The events of Infinity War and Endgame left room that you could tell a story isolated from what was going on in Infinity War and Endgame, and then have it catch up to the end of Infinity War when everybody gets snapped away.
Yeah.
That is not the case with Doomsday and Secret Wars. Like, you don't have Doomsday happen, and meanwhile, everywhere else in the world, everything's just going on as normal. And then a year later, the events of Secret Wars happen. If you know the story of Time Runs Out and Secret Wars, there's no room in there for creating something. And forget Doomsday to Secret Wars. Once you're in Secret Wars, if you had a Secret Wars Part 1 and Part 2,
oh yeah, you can't.
You cannot compare this to the scenario of Ant-Man with Infinity War. You can't even compare it. They're 2 radically different things.
Yeah.
I get why your head goes there. I totally understand the thought process, but it's a radically different scenario, Rob.
I mean, Doomsday is very apt in terms of its title.
Yeah.
and so, I mean, if you follow the comics, the multiverse ends and then Doom recreates one world, his battle world, and all of the heroes are on this crazy patchwork of of a world. It's not, I mean, I want to know how are they going to, I want to know how they're going to portray that. Like, I have no idea how are there going to be like, is the rest of the world going to exist? Or is it just going to be like, I mean, Ian McKellen talked about how he destroyed New Jersey. Like in Secret Wars, I have no idea. Like, is the rest of the world, like, are there going to be 8 billion Earth people on Battle World? Like, I don't know. I mean, because what's going to happen with the rest of the world? Like,
now, before anybody starts yelling, but Rob, in Secret Wars, remember, Marvel has never followed beat for beat what happens in its corresponding comic book story. They base their movies on existing comic book stories, but they don't follow it directly. It's really more inspired by and influenced by, and you'll get a lot of the story beats, but they'll also change things. So Rob's right. I mean, we could have 8 billion people living in this world, or we could have 8,000 people living in this world. We simply don't know at this point.
And also, John, the question that I want to ask is, okay, you move into the X-Men universe. We know they're doing X-Men next. After Thanos snapped away half the people for 5 years, and then whatever happens with the collapse of the multiverse and the end of Secret Wars, is the entire rest of the world, is the human population of Earth as it moves forward into X-Men, are we going to be the most traumatized people in the history of creation? After, I mean, it's like, how do you go through Thanos snapping half the people in the world away to the end of the multiverse, Doctor Doom creating Battle World, then they have Secret Wars? How does the rest of the world move forward after all of that? I'm looking forward to seeing how they address those issues, because I don't even think they did a good job addressing the post snap world. And what are they going to do when these two events are what is humanity, what is the universe going to do?
Dude, they've barely mentioned the fact that a giant space god appeared over the Earth and announced to its inhabitants, I will return for judgment. And other than some little headline article in a newspaper, I mean, that's really basically never even been addressed. You're right.
No.
There is no more traumatized people than the inhabitants of the Marvel Cinematic Universe Earth. There is simply not. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Now, according to some stuff coming out, that they're not looking at splitting Secret Wars into 2 films. By the way, it's important to note, nobody ever said they were. Nobody official. None of the directors, not Kevin Feige, not the studio. Nobody ever remotely suggested they were going to be splitting it. But a lot of us just kind of assumed that they were. And there were some reports claiming that. But now there's some counter reports coming out saying, no. They're not looking at doing that. Do you believe ultimately they will split Secret Wars into 2 films, or do you believe they will do it as one big movie? Whatever you guys think about it, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with all that down, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all of you guys for taking time out of your day to come and hang out with us. I know there's 1,000 other things you could be doing with your time. The very fact that you come and hang out with us here today, it means a lot to us, and it's not lost on us. Thank you so much for being here with us, guys. I want to thank, of course, writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett. Great job as always, my friend. We'll talk to you again on Monday.
Yep. And everybody go listen to True Noir. It's available on every audio platform, wherever you get your podcasts.
A lot of work got put onto that, and the results were great. Make sure you guys go and check it out. That'll do it for us for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.